Welcome to NHS Tayside Speech and Language Therapy Sounds Fun Parent Information Session. This is a video presentation that you can watch at home in your own time. We hope you find it useful. In this video, we will cover information around typical speech sound development, strategies to use during daily activities, how to have fun with sounds. This will include information on how children develop different sounds at different ages. For example, is an early developing sound, and is a later developing sound. We will talk through the ages at which different sounds develop. We will give you information on the reasons why some children have difficulties with their speech sounds. We will talk about why we use speech and what impact speech has. We will talk about how you can help, as you have a very important role in supporting your child's speech and spend the most time with them. We will give you some strategies and tips to support your child's speech development, and we will finish with some details of where to find out more information. What sounds do children say and when? The following tables tell us a bit more about the different ages when sounds develop. The ages are used as a guide. Have a look and see which sounds your child has now and which ones they might be expected to develop next. All children develop sounds differently and don't always follow this pattern. Some children will develop sounds earlier than their peers, and this is okay. The sounds in the middle column would be expected to have developed by the age of 3, and these are typically sounds which are made at the front of the mouth. It would be typical at this stage for children to miss off the end sounds of words. For example, saying ba for bus. This would be less typical after 3 years old. We would not be concerned unless a particular sound does not develop within the typical time frame, and we would also consider the impact this is having when making a decision. By 3 to 4 years old, some children will be using the new sounds in red: k, g, y, f, s. These may not be used in their speech all of the time yet. At this age, children will often say tar for car or do for go. Again, the sounds in red may or may not be used in the child's speech yet. Between 4 and 5 years old, children will often say boo for blue, poon for spoon, or cab for crab. After 5 years old, the remaining sounds in red gradually develop over the next few years. The blend sounds can take up to the age of 6 to develop. These are the sounds which are made up of 2 consonant sounds. For example, the sp in spoon. S and are the last sounds to develop, and these might not develop until 7 years old. Children under 7 often say wed for red, or fing for thing. It's really important to remember that we are looking for children to progress through the stages mentioned, rather than getting too caught up on the exact age. Have a think about where your child is at now, and where you want to move them on to next. Generally, by the age of 2.5, your child's speech should be understood by their family, so they may not be entirely clear, but you are able to tune into them. By the age of 3, your child's speech should be understood by familiar adults outside the home, but may not be completely accurate. So again, they won't always be clear, but most people can understand them if they know your child. By the age of 4, your child's speech should be understood most of the time, so an unfamiliar listener would be able to understand what your child is saying. Here is an activity to get you thinking about which sounds develop and when. Have a think about all of the children listed for a few moments. Pause the video if you would like more time. Think about Anne. She finds the k sound and her blend sounds tricky. What do you think? Is this concerning or okay at this age? The k sound and blend sounds are tricky for any 2-year-old, and so this would not be concerning at this age. Brian is struggling with his f and g sounds. What do you think? Concerning or okay at this age? We would expect both the f and g sounds to be in place around 4 years old, so this would be a little concerning at 5 years, 7 months. Carol is missing off the sounds at the beginning of words. What do you think? We see the ends of words missed off before 3 years old, but would not expect to see the beginning of words missed off in many children. This would be concerning after 3 years old. Dylan is finding his r and th sounds tricky. What do you think? And th are two of the hardest sounds to say in the English language, and so would not be concerning for a 4-year-old. And finally, Eddie is struggling with his k sound, and also some of his s blends. What do you think? We would expect both k and blends to be in place by 6 years old, so this would be a bit more concerning at this stage. Listen while I say some of the speech sound errors that you might hear from your child. Have a think about what sound has been changed. Tota-tola. So here I have changed a k for a t sound. Deuce. The j sound has been changed to a d. Boot. The k sound has been changed to a t sound, but at the end of the word this time. Wheaties. I have missed off the s sound at the beginning of the word. Pert. The s sound has been changed to a t at the end of the word. Speech problems can arise for a number of reasons. It could be because they are the youngest child. Often, older siblings will talk a lot for the younger child, meaning they have fewer opportunities for developing accurate speech. They might have a dummy. SLTs aren't against dummies for the right purpose at the right time. They act as soothers. But as the child starts to make noises and sounds, their tongue movements are restricted if they're regularly sucking on a dummy. Dummies also prevent lip closure, which is needed for development of certain sounds like p. They could be a boy. There is evidence that baby girls move their mouths in repetitive patterns in the uterus 50% more than baby boys. This may explain why boys tend to be slower to talk than girls. It could be the type of child. Some children, particularly boys, enjoy rough and tumble play, with less interest in fine motor activities, which includes coordinating sounds. There could be no reason at all. Not all siblings develop the same way. There are examples of parents who have 2 girls, both exposed to the same environment, but one developed lots of speech issues and the other had none. Sometimes there is no obvious explanation. Their speech difficulties could also be due to difficulties with hearing. If children have lots of coughs and colds, they might develop glue ear or have periods when it's harder to hear sounds. This might mean they can't hear the difference between some of the quieter sounds, which could lead to them saying sounds incorrectly. What is their speech role model like? Children learn to talk from hearing others talk. If they hear speech sound errors from others around them, they might struggle to develop accurate speech sounds. All children develop at different rates. It's important to realise that there is a wide variation with this. There can also be a family pattern. Speech difficulties often run in families, so if one child is late to talk, it's not uncommon that the younger child will develop the same pattern. To get an idea of how hard it is for children to change the way they say something, we're going to try and change some of our sounds. Try saying in a sentence your name, where you live, and what you had for breakfast. But instead of using the s sound, use a t. For example, my name is Jane Smith, and I live in Kinross. And for breakfast, I had cereal. Pause the video and have a go at home. How did it go? Did you change your words so you didn't have to change your sounds? Did you avoid certain words, shorten what you were going to say, not speak at all, or feel self-conscious about trying? Children do all of these things too. They often know that changing their sounds is hard and try to change their words or avoid talking to make it easier. It's not just laziness, it's hard work to change your sounds. We know this was making a deliberate mistake, but we hope it gives you an idea of just how hard it is to plan, think ahead, and get a different sound. This is, after all, what we're asking of a child. Why is speech important? Speech allows us to express our wants, needs, and emotions, and can impact upon children's confidence and self-esteem. Think back to how you felt with the previous activity. It's easy to imagine how speech difficulties would impact on your confidence. It can affect their interaction with others and their learning. Poor sound awareness skills can lead to difficulties with reading and writing. However, for children with mild speech errors, the impact on literacy can be minimal with the correct support and exposure to phonics in Primary 1. You have an important role in supporting your child's speech development. You are an essential part of your child's development. You are there most of the time and will be able to support them every day in lots of different situations and activities. You are a good role model for teaching your child sounds. All the words they already know, they learn from you. You know your child best, so will know how and when to support them best. We are going to start talking about what you can do to help your child develop their speech sounds, but we thought we would begin with a few things that do not really help. We want to get these out of the way first. These are all things that we can end up doing when trying to help. So what's not helpful? Correcting your child and using negative language. For example, no, it's not a tat, it's a cat. Your child might not be ready to copy or use the sound. Repeating your child's errors. Where's the tat gone? By repeating their mistake, your child is hearing the wrong model, which is not helpful as you're reinforcing this. Putting pressure on your child to imitate correct speech. For example, now you do it, or copy me. This is not helpful as your child thinks they are saying the word correctly, so they won't understand what mistake they've made. You may find children who will say, I didn't say tat, I said tat. Laughing and joking about it. This can lead to children being hesitant when they are talking. Now let's talk about some strategies that are more helpful. Encourage your child to show you what they are trying to tell you about. For example, by pointing, gesture, or hand leading. Show you're making an effort and trying hard to understand them. For example, take a guess from what you have understood. Ask your child if they can think of another word for it. Gauge your child's mood. You know when it's best to persevere or when to move on. Sometimes you just won't be able to understand your child, and that's okay. Acknowledge that talking can be tricky. If this is the case, you can always try and wait for later. You might just need some time to work it out. Or you can think about if there is someone else there who could help. If not, could you call Dad later to see if he can help? Don't pretend to understand. Children are often aware when we do this. You could also try to divert your child's focus to a more play-based activity. For example, something that they can do that doesn't require talking. We'll now talk about some activities you can try. These focus on your child's ability to listen to sounds. This is a skill they need to develop first before they'll be able to say the sounds. Try listening walks. For example, talking about what you can hear in your environment. This could be things like the bus, birds tweeting, and the wind. Talk about the sound that you hear. For example, a bee might make a noisy buzz sound. Or we have to be quiet, shh, or when baby's sleeping. Play with the sounds and noises. For example, model animal noises and see if your child will copy you. You could also blow raspberries to each other. This is a great start for practicing sounds, as children who may avoid speech sound work will probably not consider animal noises as sounds, but of course it is. When carrying out these activities, it's important to be mindful of background noise, which could distract from the listening activities. For example, the TV or the Xbox. Try to turn these off to make listening easier. Before children can say new sounds, they need to be able to hear them. Hear when they sound the same. For example, s sounds the same as s. Hear when they sound different. For example, sh is not the same as s. And hear that words are made up of parts. For example, sausages is made up of 3 syllables. Most children do this without thinking. Some children need a little extra help. The best way to do this is through play with sounds. Other things you can try are relating sounds to an image or an object. For example, s is a snake sound, and p is like the sound bubbles make when they pop. You could hold up pictures to show this. Print off pictures from the internet or draw your own to represent different sounds. You can look in the mirror with your child to see where your tongue or teeth go when making different sounds. Rhymes are a really important part of learning about sounds. Use books of nursery rhymes. This provides lots of opportunities for you to model rhyming to your child. A good way of expanding on this is to leave off the final rhyming word. For example, row, row, row your boat gently down the... Julia Donaldson has some good examples of rhyming books, but you don't necessarily need a book to do this. You could involve your child by getting them to draw a prop for each rhyme. For example, draw a star for Twinkle Twinkle, or a spider for Incy Wincy Spider. Use objects and toys which rhyme to provide additional opportunities for modelling. For example, gather a hat, a cat, and a mat, and name them for your child to hear. Don't be afraid to repeat this over and over. The more children hear these models, the better. You can even put the objects in a bag to build up anticipation and make it more fun. Be animated and make it fun, but be aware of your speed. Children need to hear words slowly so they can tune in. Start to say, they rhyme, or they sound the same, to raise your child's awareness of this. Emphasizing sounds is another useful way to support your child's awareness of sounds. This can be done by highlighting sounds in everyday conversations. For example, let's put on your socks. Or, look, there's a fish. Gather some things that start with the sound. For example, a bag of toys that start with the t sound. This provides lots of opportunities for you to model words beginning with this sound. Scrapbooks are a great way of collecting a range of pictures of words that start with a certain sound that your child can say. Your child can then show the book to friends and family, providing them with lots of opportunities to say the words. Clapping out the syllables of words is another really useful strategy to developing children's awareness of sounds. This can be done by clapping out names of family and friends, clapping out objects from a feelie bag, or clapping out tricky words. Some children miss out parts of words, for example saying nana instead of banana. Clapping can help them to build awareness of parts of words, and parents often report this really improves their child's speech. It's good to include words with a range of syllables. For example, ball, monkey, aeroplane, and helicopter. When we're trying to be a good speech model, we need to use a relaxed speech rate. Use shorter sentences to help when your child gets stuck. Emphasize the particular sound. For example, sun. Children benefit from adults providing feedback and acknowledging their attempt at saying something, even if it isn't clear. This level of modelling is suitable to use with all children. Family words can be entertaining. For example, everyone calls a banana a nana, because that's how your child has said it. It's important to keep modelling these words correctly from an early age, so that they don't become stuck. Repeating back words is a useful strategy for all children as they continue to develop their language skills into adulthood. You can see the mum here is giving her child a good model to follow by showing her how her words should have sounded and emphasising the missing s sound. Here's an activity to get you to think about how best to support your child with their talking. Imagine your child says, "Where's my paid?" Take a few minutes to think about what you would say. What we would recommend is to model to your child how they would say it if they could. For example, "Where's my spade?" You might also notice that I highlighted the s sound at the start of spade. Let's think of another example. Now imagine your child says, "Want do." Take a minute to think about what you would say. This is a tricky one, as it may depend on the context. For example, some kids would say do for juice. Others would say do for shoe. And others might say do for two. In this circumstance, we have a clue of a cup to help you work out the meaning. We would model back, "You want juice." This example has two sound substitutions, because in reality your child will probably substitute more than just the one sound in their sentences. When correcting, model all the words correctly, but just pick one to emphasise to reduce confusion for your child. You might say, "Look at the pig," or "Look at the pig." This is another example of a child using two sound substitutions, although this time the same sound has been changed, so these can both be corrected and highlighted. So, for example, you could say, "Yes, Sarah's at school." Let the child hear the sound as many times as you can. For example, "Let's go find Sarah. Is Sarah in her room? Silly Sarah." After trying these strategies, if you do not notice progress with your child's sounds, or if your child's frustration is increasing, you may need further support. Please feel free to contact your local therapist for further support. We acknowledge that there are some children who will need SLT involvement, but there are others who will not. Use the age norms from this video or on our website to check your child's speech sounds over the next wee while. Further information can be found on our website, Facebook page, or Twitter. You can also contact your local department in Dundee, Perth and Kinross, or Angus using the details on your screen. Thank you for watching Sounds Fun, a parent information session for parents and carers of preschool children with speech sound difficulties.